because all week long it's rivalry week. Michigan taking on Michigan State under the lights on Saturday. Were you surprised when we found out that this was going to be under the lights in East Lansing? Because I was. I felt like this game didn't have a ton of juice to it. And for them to put it under the lights definitely adds a little bit of juice to the mix. Definitely adds a little fuel to the fire, despite both teams. I don't want to say disappointing year so far for Michigan, but I think you can say slightly disappointing.
I mean, they're ranked right now. I mean, I don't think it's been like an overall disappointing year. They've had some disappointing games and performances, but overall, I wouldn't say it's been a disappointing year. But I do agree that this was a bit surprising for the night game aspect. Michigan beating Washington, I think, set this in stone.
Mm-hmm.
Because usually they have to do this 10 days out, whether or not they figure out the game is, but they kind of did this late.
We didn't know until Saturday.
Right. We didn't know until after the weeks, like a week ahead of the game when they had the time for it. So, yeah, I think that Michigan beating Washington played a lot into this. If Michigan would have dropped that game, we'd have been looking at a 3:30 kick for sure.
Well, now that it's under the lights, it changes my opinion on it slightly. And after Michigan State both wrap up their games this weekend, I'm really curious to myself, what does this spread look like going into East Lansing Saturday night? A lot of stakes for Michigan. I think if Michigan loses this game, all of a sudden people are going to be really questioning whether or not Sharon Moore should be the coach. It feels like everyone has kind of raised their eyebrows at Sharon Moore at some point over the last couple of seasons, but no one's come out right and just said, I don't think this guy should be the head coach anymore. It's a conversation that everyone has danced around. They lose this game, all of a sudden, that is a real conversation. So I feel like the pressure is mostly on Michigan, despite Jonathan Smith basically coaching for his life. Doesn't feel like anybody wants him there. Maybe there's pressure on him. I don't know if there's necessarily pressure on Michigan State. I expected this spread to be single digits. It's a freshman quarterback going on the road, hostile environment. I texted you what the spread was last night. It's 14.5. I was really caught off guard by this.
Yeah, this was even. I thought I was being aggressive. I thought 12.5 was going to be the line. That was my prediction, and even then, I was like, that might be a little bit too much. But look, Michigan State just has not competed with the good teams of the Big Ten this season. It's not been even tight in any of these games. They score late in the end of the game to backdoor cover, which at this point is getting a little bit sketchy with that field goal against Indiana on Saturday. Nonetheless, this is going to be a game that, like you said, there is no pressure on Michigan State. It's all on Sharon Moore in Michigan, right? I mean, this is such a big spot for Jonathan Smith to save his job. Who cares? Like, it doesn't even matter at this point for Jonathan Smith.
No, nobody wants him there anyway.
Exactly. Even if he does beat Michigan, like, people still want him out. This could be the only game that Michigan State could win in the Big Ten this season. Whereas for Michigan, like, this is a true, you look at the rest of their schedule, like, this is a true one of those games where you're just trying to get to Ohio State at this point.
Mm-hmm. Which is the game that can save Michigan's season. Ironically, this is the game that can save Michigan State's season here, which always is funny with the brother dynamic that we don't have to get into right now. Because I want to touch on the Michigan game from this Saturday, because I think you look at the final score, 24-7, and that feels like a dominant win. But if you watch the entire thing and you watched it play out, it does feel a little bit misleading, that final score of 24-7, because that game very well could have been tied 7-7 going into the fourth quarter, but Washington's quarterback just starts malfunctioning late in the third quarter, starts throwing it directly to Michigan players. You would have thought he was like colorblind because he was just not seeing any of these linebackers. Michigan gets a pick in Washington's red zone, ends up being 14-7 heading into the fourth quarter, and then the Washington team, the Washington offense just spirals out of control. That quarterback was a mess. He had like some Tua Tagovailoa turnovers in that fourth quarter. So I do want to give credit to Michigan. They didn't implode. They didn't beat themselves, and sometimes that's all you have to do in college football. I want to give credit to Bryce Underwood because that was arguably the best game he's played, not in terms of like the total raw yards and touchdowns and rushing yards, but he went 21 for 27, 230 yards. He was 12 for 14 over the middle of the field, which I thought was really impressive, the way he can just zip a ball right behind a linebacker's head or in front of them, and they just can't anticipate it because it's coming in so fast. The receivers are starting to step up, like McCauley and Marsh. They're getting better, and that was my biggest gripe with this team is I can't see the progression on a week-to-week basis. I did think they got better yesterday, or on Saturday against this Washington team, but I don't think it was a dominant win. I don't think it was as misleading as that final score says. I thought they caused Washington to collapse down the stretch. Was the offense explosive? Was it dominant? No. And honestly, I feel worse and worse about the coaching staff on a week-to-week basis. That opening drive that Michigan had on Saturday against Washington was about as putrid as you can do, and that's the only drive that's really scripted, that and coming out of halftime. But they open up the game with an incomplete pass, complete miscommunication between Bryce Underwood and McCulley, no gain. They hand it off to their backup running back, Jordan Marshall, for 1 yard, and then they throw it short of the sticks, and it's like, just like that, you went 3 and out. Some of the fourth down stuff, they were 0 for 2 on fourth downs. They were 6 for 15 on third and fourth downs combined. It was 4th and 2 from Washington's 6-yard line. And they bring out 2 tight ends. This is in the third quarter. 2 tight ends and 2 fullbacks. And they try to run it into the teeth of the Washington defense. Like, that is Washington's one strength. Why are you leaning into Washington's lone strength, their run defense? And Michigan was able to put up a good amount of yards on Washington on the ground, 187, which was their 4th best performance of the year. It was the most Washington had allowed all season. But you bring out 2 tight ends and 2 fullbacks. What do you like? You're just screaming to you don't need sign stealing to know what that team's going to do. They're going to run the football, and of course they get stuffed. I just think the lack of creativity sometimes from this coaching staff and the way that they're able to game plan for certain opponents is still very much in question. And we've seen this in the past. We haven't necessarily seen it in the Sharon Moore era of the Michigan team overlooking Michigan State. And I wonder if they're going to fall into that trap this year. Again, I'm not coming out and saying I think Michigan State's going to win, but when I saw the 14.5-point spread, I was shocked, especially on the road, under the lights. It's the biggest game Bryce Underwood has played in, not necessarily in terms of ranked matchups, but it'll certainly be the most hostile environment he's ever played in. I thought the 14.5 was a little much.
Yeah, I think they're just trying to correlate to what Michigan State has done against all these other ranked teams this season. They have covered against them all. At some point, they gotta go against them, right? They sneak it in every time and end up covering against all these good teams that they play.
Wait, you said something earlier.
You have to extend the yeah, go ahead.
You said something about the backdoor cover with Michigan State. Is that like a real conversation that's being had?
Yeah, why did
suspicious?
they kick a field goal with 25 seconds left in that game yesterday or on Saturday? Why would you do that?
To make the score look a little bit more respectful? Did you really think they were going to score a touchdown?
When the line was 27.5 and you were down by 28 points and you kick a field goal, I don't know. I just think that's kind of weird. Backdoor covering against USC, whatever, that happened. It was a big touchdown play. You're obviously trying to score touchdowns. You do it against Nebraska the following week, a little bit weird. Okay, whatever. This one was really weird. That's all I'm saying.
This is news to me. I wasn't aware of the Michigan State.
Well, they've done it 3 times now. They just like that's what Michigan State can hang their hat on this season. That's like the win of the year is covering
but sometimes
against these good teams.
This is like the Bryce Young thing for so long. It's like sometimes these quarterbacks just need to be down 21-0 before they actually can play a little bit loose and off script, and there's not pressure on them, and then they can start moving the ball down the field. Maybe that's Aiden Childs. It's like he can't actually like shake the cobwebs off and get loose until he's down a ton in the score.
Yeah, I mean it's not like a good trait to have by any means.
That's not what I'm arguing.
Right.
But I was caught off guard by this 14.5-point spread.
Yeah.
So I wanted to hear what everyone else thought. 989-837-6125. We're live on YouTube as well. Drop a comment in the chat. We'll get to some of those. We'll get to some Mitt messages. Again, that's 989-837-6125. Your reaction to the Michigan State spread being 14.5 after this weekend, where I thought Michigan had a good win. I don't think it was great. I thought the score was just a tad bit misleading. The 24-7 because Washington just spiraled out of control at the very end. So you got to give Michigan credit for not doing that. But as for the Michigan offense, it was fine. I don't think it was a great performance. As for Michigan State, they made it seem like close for a quarter against Indiana. Nobody in their right mind thought they were going to hang in there with Indiana. But it kind of feels like the Big Ten is like a 2-man race right now between Indiana and Ohio State. And I would love to buy some Oregon stock a little bit later on. Of course, we'll do our stock exchange. But Indiana and Ohio State, they don't play anybody the rest of the year. Like, the toughest game between both of those teams is going to be the Michigan-Ohio State game. Indiana's schedule is a cupcake the rest of the way. I don't know how they keep getting away with this. It's back-to-back years. They don't have to play anybody.
I mean, they already had a couple big games early in the season.
They beat Oregon. That was their big one, right? Who else did they play?
I mean, we're doing this again, out on Indiana back-to-back years?
No, Indiana's clearly a lot better than they were last year. Like, it's not a fraudulent team. I'm not doing that. I just think I don't know. There's something about Indiana where Kirk Cincinnati's
Penn
awesome.
State
It's just boring.
On the schedule at the beginning of the year, Penn State would have been a big game.
Penn State lost again.
Beat Illinois by 1,000 points when they were a top 10 ranked team at the time. It's a good schedule.
Good schedule by Indiana. 989